Now tell me about the story when you were in India and money was provided supernatural.
Yeah, so in India they love to hear this story because in India to see, excuse me, like a miracle doesn't happen of finding money in India because they're all desperate, they're all poor. And so if somebody sees any coin or any note or something on the floor, they will all be the first to jump on it and probably start a riot who saw it first and attack each other for it. So to give the context of the story, I was preaching in a church for a pastor, and he liked my preaching and enjoyed it very much, and so he went out of his way to find out what shoe size I was and everything, and then he went to the most expensive shop in town and he bought me these handmade leather shoes. I still remember them because they were like a really nice colour, green and some brown or something, and it was like very unusual. And I thanked him very much and said, "You don't have to do that for me." And he said, "No, this is how we, reward our preachers or something." And I said, thanked him very much, and he said, "I've got to go, and my assistant will look after you, and God bless you." And so he went on his way wherever he had to go, and the assistant came up to me, make sure the pastor had left, and he says, "Oh, by the way, the pastor gave a message that you must pay for those shoes." And I said, "What do you mean? That's like a gift, and how can you cheat me?" Actually, I knew he was cheating because it was very suspicious that he waited till the pastor had gone. So I can see afterwards he thinks that I'm from the West, and actually I'm not even living in the West, even though I was born in Australia. I'd lived 25 years out of Australia. I'd been travelling for most of those times in poor countries. And the only money that I ever had was people would donate me money in one pocket, and I would give it out the other pocket and never even count what.
After you left the real estate business, after having turned over 40 homes, and you've been a wealthy man, but you gave it all up for Jesus.
Yeah,
and
I just...
You don't regret?
No. I'm glad. I think God allowed all that, looking back, to show me that he wanted to show me that he would look after me far better than I looked after myself.
Absolutely.
And he gets the glory for it.
Yeah, it's so exciting to be provided for. Continue the story.
Yeah. Well, why it's so amazing is because I had never had something so supernatural as this happen, except for one other time actually, which I could tell that little story first. I'd got on a bus and I had not known how I was going to pay for the bus ticket, and the bus driver, the conductor, came up to me. And maybe that was in India, I can't remember. It was a very poor country anyway. And I thought, I don't have any of their money, and I can't explain to them, that I'm sorry because they don't speak English. So I hoped that he wouldn't ask me for the fare or something. So he came up to me and said, "Ticket, please." And I said, "Well, actually, I don't have the money yet." And then I felt this little voice saying, "Why don't you look on the seat beside you?" And actually looked beside me, and I hadn't noticed it before, but the exact amount of the money that I needed was all coins. I just picked it up and gave it to him, and he probably saw me doing it, and he wondered why I'd kept my money on the seat, but it wasn't my money. And then I asked myself, why hadn't that fallen off? Because on a bumpy road, if somebody did leave money there, why was it the exact amount of the fare, and why had it bumped off onto the floor? And why was it there when I needed it? Before, I didn't see it there. When I got to sit there was no money there. So either an angel put it there, or it just was planted there or something. So that's the only other time I've seen really God provide supernaturally out of the sky or something. Every other time it's been through a person, and somebody, usually a stranger, comes to me, but it's somebody giving me, like the little girl, "Here's the $40 for the taxi fare." Or another time, "Here's your stamp money for the envelopes." That's another story. But this time, I was a few days later, after the man had said, "These shoes you have to pay for." And I said, "Lord, that's all the money I've got." And he said, "Don't worry, give them the money. I know he's cheating you, but he's not cheating you. he's cheating me. I will look after it. I said, okay, this guy's going to be in big trouble because this God is going to deal with him. So I knew he was lying to me, but he insisted, and he thought that this was his way of getting money easily. So I gave it the money, and I said, if you are lying, God's going to punish you and deal with you, because I know what happened in the Old Testament with Gehazi, the servant of Elijah. He got cancer, or something like that happened to him. The sickness that was on Naaman, leprosy, actually came onto all of his generation. That's how severely. And I told him the story. I said, this is what I believe you're doing to me. And the guy didn't back off and get scared and say, okay, keep the shoes and forget it. He was like determined to get his money. So I thought, oh well, God's bigger than this. It's only like, it was about 40 US dollars. Actually, it was exactly 180 rupees, whatever that worked out, like 30 US dollars or something. So it wasn't a big deal at the time, but at the moment, that's all the money that I had, actually. And he didn't know that, but I gave him all the money that I had, basically. Could have had a few coins or something, but that was the majority of it. And then as a few days later, or could have been like the next day, I can't remember how quick it was, but I remember I was actually walking through a huge, big, crowded marketplace. And from memory, I was on the way to an airport, so I basically had my luggage with me, and I'm walking through this crowded marketplace where there was cows and motorbikes and everything like that. It was just full of people, yeah, absolutely dirty and filthy and stinking and everything. But the thing was, I was just praising God. I wasn't even thinking of looking at the ground, and I had this like a sense, inner sense in my spirit. And I believe this is how God speaks to us, through the inward witness, or just an inner sense, or like a green light, or just an inward knowing, like inside information.
Yeah, I know that there are many ways that God speaks, but this is one of the ways.
One of the major way. And I would just sense to look at the ground. And I looked down the ground and I said, but God, there's a roll of money there. You don't just stare at it, pick it up. I said, if I pick that up, I'm going to have every person jump on me and attack me, and they'll probably kill me for it. No, don't worry, just pick it up. Okay, I'll pick it up, and I'm very careful to look around me. Nobody saw me, but I quickly put it in my pocket, and then I went over with my back to the crowd, because I looked around, no one's looking at me, or I didn't think there was, and I just turned my back in case that somebody saw me counting this money, because if they saw me counting money, so much money in public, they'll probably rob me. So I deliberately counted it very slowly, and I'm counting it out to myself, and I'm going 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180. I said, oh my God. I said, God, Father, this is the exact amount that man cheated me, 180 rupees. And now I found a roll of money that's 180 rupees. And I felt the Lord saying, well, what did you expect? Because if it was like a little bit more or a little bit less, then I know it wasn't God. It was just luck. There's no such thing. But I mean, to find the exact amount, and it was rolled up. It was like specifically put in front of me. It wasn't like over in the distance. It was right at my feet, and it was the roll of money. It was probably knowing it was the exact same money that man had taken me, probably the same notes and everything, but it was the exact amount. And I was just praising God, because I realized that this, in the small details where God shows that he's supernatural. Everything God does is supernatural, but he wants to show us that he cares and that he keeps his promise. And when he said, I will take care of that money, he's not cheating you, he's cheating me. And I believe that, God's big enough to look after his own debtors. If somebody steals from God, they're going to miss out. They're going to cheat themselves, really.